Live the Goals Podcast, your place for motivation, life lessons, and laughter. Don't settle for wandering through a mundane life. Instead, let us help you reach your goals and live a fulfilling life doing what you love. Our guests know what it's like to live with purpose and laugh along the way. Warning, if you're a stick in the mud, you definitely need to stick around. Loosen up your ties, kick off your high heels, and let's get to it with your host, Dale Richardson.
All right, friends and family, we're back for another great episode of Live the Goals Podcast. I have a very special guest for you today. I'm really excited about this interview. We were just laughing it up right before we started this. I have with us today Dr. Simpson, and he's a world-renowned mind coach. He's a presenter, author, and fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine. Now, as a private mind coach, Dr. Simpson counts many luminaries from the sporting, gaming, entertainment, and business worlds among his clients, and including world #1 poker legend, Chris Moorman. Now, Dr. Simpson has appeared on countless TV shows, right, or channels, BBC, ITV, Sky, Voice of America, and other top international TV and radio programs, as well as the pages of periodicals and papers such as Sunday People, Glamour, Golfing World, The Best of You, WPT Poker, and more and more and more. I'm really excited that he's here to share his simple, innovative methods for building luck. That sounds that's getting me excited. So, Dr. Simpson, I am ready for you. Are you ready to help us set and reach goals that matter?
Well, I'm more than ready, Dale. And first of all, thank you for that glowing introduction and for having me on your show. What you should know is that I saved my best for your show. This is the one that I really wanted to get on.
You've been waiting for years, even before it launched. You've been waiting to get on this show.
Yeah, I'm ready for it now.
Awesome, Stephen. I've given them your formal bio. I mean, all the accolades and achievements that you have. I'd love for you to just kind of give us a bigger picture of who Stephen is, who is the person?
Well, he's a very ordinary person, I can assure you. And you talk about the accolades of all the stuff that I've done. To be quite honest, I haven't done any of that. And I always say this if the subject comes up. My clients do the hard work. They post the results.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm a mind coach, and I don't put anything into anybody. I ignite what is there already that maybe they didn't quite know, where they'd hidden it. But they get the credit for this stuff, and it's my privilege to work with people like that.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I think even that description gives us a bigger picture of who you are, and where your focus is, right? And helping your clients and making sure that they're finding what's inside them, right? Helping them tap into what's already there. That's awesome. So before we kind of get running here, because I really do want to get into quite a few different things, I always start my show, or at least I try to always start my show with the guest telling us something that made them laugh recently, whether it's a funny story or something that's happened to you or something even you thought about. I just like reminding all of us that we have ups and downs in life, and it's good to just look for those things that make us laugh every once in a while. So I'd love to hear what made you laugh recently.
Okay, well, this is an easy one, and I'm laughing already before I've started.
Okay.
You mentioned I work with Chris Moorman, the #1 online poker player in the world. He's won, I think, about $14 million or something.
Okay.
And he lost a couple of years ago. He wrote a book about poker, how to hand histories and strategies and all that kind of stuff. And he's just about to have published. In fact, by the time this show goes out, the book will be published, which is why I can talk about it. And he gave me a draft of one of the final copy to read, and the only time I get to read stuff is when I'm on a plane. So I took it on this plane with me. And the first half of the book is autobiographical about Chris. And there were a couple of stories in particular that had me laughing out loud. Now, poker players are a bit different, okay? I said that I'm like the guy who lives next door, but poker players are very different. I might tell you in what way later, but let's just say they're different.
Okay.
Chris is an English guy. He was studying at university for a degree in economics, and he was in his final term. I think you call that a semester, don't you?
We do, yes.
Yeah, he just had a few weeks to go, and the hardest part of the course was in front of him. He had to write a dissertation of 10,000 words or something, and he does not like being organized in that way. So he decided that he wasn't going to do it. Well, of course, the problem was no dissertation, no degree.
Right.
And his parents had been funding him, for this course. And pretty soon into the course, he started to get interested in poker and was playing more and more until it got to the final year that actually he was making a good amount of money and he didn't really care about a degree.
Yeah.
But he couldn't tell his parents that. So as far as his parents were aware, he was away studying at university, writing his dissertation and everything, where in reality he was playing poker about 18 hours a day. But then when the term ended, he had to go back home, and the parents were starting to say, we're so much looking forward to going to your degree ceremony.
Oh, my goodness.
3 years for this moment, and, we're going to have a photographer and a family. So he said, no, I don't want to do that because I'm so ashamed that the grade I got was very low. We call it a 2-2. It's a bare pass. He said, I don't see anything to celebrate. I just want to move on with the rest of my life.
Keep the lie going.
Yeah, but you see, this is a lesson for everybody, by the way. Once you start lying, you never have to stop. It gets worse and worse. So his parents, okay, Chris, well, at least we can get your degree certificate framed. He said, no, I don't want to see that every time. No, we insist. So he didn't know what to do. So he had to go away and get a designer to design a fake degree certificate.
Oh my goodness.
And in fact, I was talking to Chris yesterday, and we were chatting about this very same thing. And I said, "Is there anything on your mind?" Because he's playing in the World Series at the moment. And he said, "Yeah, I'm pretty worried about something." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, I still haven't got around to telling my parents about the degree certificate stuff. My book comes out on the 1st of July, and one of their friends is bound to tell them." So I started laughing. Steve, it's not funny. I'm here to concentrate on my poker. I say, okay, Chris, well, the best way you can deal with this, quite frankly, is get a big win under your belt, and then you can give your dad a call and just say, "Hey, guess what? The good news. And one thing that I've been feeling I have to discuss with you and get it off my chest." So I think that's funny. When Chris sees this, hears this audio, or whatever, he won't be laughing either. But I thought, I've got a son who causes me problems, so I'm sure his dad will find somewhere in him to laugh.
Yeah. And I guess we're a little bit beyond that. He's successful. I'm sure that's the main thing parents want, right? They want you to get the degree because they want you to be successful, right?
Exactly. And he's happy, which of course is the main thing.
Oh, so absolutely.
But, he's feeling bad about it right now.
It's funny because when you watch some of these TV shows and the people do things that kind of compound on the lie and it gets bigger and bigger, and you wonder, like who does that? Well, guess what? We do that. We all do that.
Who would imagine designing your own degree certificate?
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really good one there. Thank you. I appreciate it. A really good laugh there. Well, Stephen, we're going to do something a little different. I would have loved to have had several different interviews with you, but we're going to try to get it all into one. So, you were just giving us an example of a poker player who you coach, and you talk about the mind. My podcast is about goals and setting goals and making sure they're goals you want to reach and that you'll be happy with when you get there, right? The difference between completing that college degree and playing poker for Chris. And so it's funny because this brings back all of these old memories. Over a decade ago, I was avid poker player. Whether I was playing for real in the casino or playing for free at the local, bar or restaurant, or a home game, I was playing quite often. My friends that know me know I was playing, 4 to 5 times a week was nothing. And at that time, I had the goal of being in the poker tour or the world championship, right? Within 10 years. And I was 5 years into that goal when I actually diverted and actually dropped it and got into a bunch of other things. And so that kind of still, lingers in the back of my mind. And while, I wasn't wildly successful at that point, I felt like I was on a good trajectory to get there. What can you say about, what have you learned maybe about goal setting through poker players who have such like a big goal like Chris, right? I mean, he's going to the championship of poker. I mean, people from literally, when they call this a world event, people are coming from all over the world to play in this, and he wants to be number one. I'd love to hear your take on goal setting in poker.
Okay, well, it's funny you should ask me that question. I just made a video yesterday. It'll probably be on YouTube later today.
Okay.
On this very subject. I've published about 5 books, I think, and the last 2, one was about poker, one was about luck and how we can attract luck into our life. The last 2 were published just a few months ago, and goals is quite an important part of both of those books. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, this video that I made yesterday, goals to me now are of almost zero importance. And I know that is a very revolutionary thing to say, so I better explain what I mean.
Yeah.
And in fact, the idea started because I first stumbled across, Chris and I connected January 2014. And he'd had a bad year the previous year, and he was not into having mind coaches, but his partner persuaded him, why not? Mm-hmm. So he was kind of dragged to have a Skype conversation with me just so we could explore some stuff. Mm-hmm. And it became pretty clear that because of his diary and mine, plus he wasn't in a great hurry to meet me, that this meeting was not going to happen. The nearest we could get to was July. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, where are you next week or the week after? He said, well, I'm in Canada. I'm in Vancouver. I'm playing in a tournament there. So I said, okay, I'll see you there. I'll be in touch. And I pressed the red button.
Too late. I'm off the phone.
Too late.
Yeah.
And that was crazy, because we didn't have any contracts or anything. And I had obviously, air tickets are expensive, so hotels, etc. Mm-hmm. I just felt, compelled to do this crazy thing. So we did meet, and we met for 2 sessions, like 2-hour sessions for 3 days. So it's quite intensive. And after the first session, Chris really kind of, light bulbs started to go on, and he became, like the ideal student and the ideal client. And the first thing we talked about was goals. So I said, okay, Chris, what are your goals? He said, well, I'm a professional poker player, so I want to win more money. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, why? He said, it's not so much the money, it's like the world rankings, and everything depends on my ranking. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. He said, what's the other thing? And he said, well, this is the big one. It's like a 300-pound gorilla on my back. I'm sick and tired of people saying, are you going to go down in history, Chris, as the best poker player in the world who never won a major live tournament?
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay, I've tried to stay silent so far, Chris, but it's bursting out of me now. I said, I don't like either of those 2 goals, and I don't think they're going to help you. And I saw him looking at the door, and he wanted to see if he could get past me quickly and just run away.
Yeah.
But he couldn't. I was sitting in front of the door for a reason. And I said, Chris, I don't know very much about poker. I'd worked with a few players before, and I'd been to the tournaments and stuff, but I didn't know a huge amount. I said, you tell me, when you're in a live event, how much can you control related to your game of poker? And he had a little think about it. Mm-hmm. And he started off, as people normally do, he told me all the things he can't control. Can't control the cards, can't control the other people he's playing with, can't control the people going backwards and forwards, bringing drinks, food, can't control people texting, and the noise in one of these places, those chips, everybody's holding.
Yeah.
I mean, first time you go into one of these places is the first thing you notice. So there's all this going on, all these distractions and attention leaks, as they call them. Mm. And so I said, okay, Chris, well, what can you control? You've told me all this stuff. And that's when he got it. He said, actually, there's not very much I can control. I said, no, there isn't, but what can you? And he said, I can control the focus that I give to every hand that I'm dealt. Yeah, anything else? He said, well, can't think of anything. I said, okay, well, I'll help you with this. I like your first one, by the way. I said, you can control your emotions. You can learn how to control your emotions. He said, well, how do I do that? I said, well, that's what I'm here for, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I said, now, going back to the first one that you mentioned, you said you would give your maximum focus to every hand. I said, do you really mean that? I mean, this tournament's going to go on for 7 days, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
How many hundreds of hands is that going to be? Are you going to do that? And he said, yeah, I will. When I commit to something, I do it. I said, well, I hope you do, Chris. I personally don't think you will, because you're a human being. You're not a bot. You're not a
right.
And so he got a bit iffy about that. But I said, I'll tell you something, Chris. If you can do that 80% of the time, you're going to be ahead of just about every player there. Now, who knows what cards you're going to get? It may not make any difference, but at least you're putting yourself in the game. This is a phrase I use quite often with people. Put yourself into the game and see what happens. Well, I think the odds of making any money in a live tournament at all are something like 15%. Most people get busted out before they get into the money. I got a phone call from him, and he said, well, I played in a major live tournament, like I said. So I said, well, okay, how did you get on? He said, it wasn't too bad. Tried a few things you suggested. I said, oh, good. Did you get any money? He said, yeah, I did. I won a bit. I said, oh, where did you come? He said, well, I won. I won my first major. I won over $1 million. And he said, I've been thinking about you. You've obviously got some expenses from Vancouver. I said, oh, yeah. And next thing I knew, he just sent me some money.
Oh, wow.
And from that day, which was 3.5 years ago, we still don't have a contract, but we still are working together, and we're talking, every week or something like that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that was a very, very long answer to your question about goals. And have I kind of explained that okay?
Absolutely. And let me make sure I'm pulling some of the right stuff out of it, because I think we have a lot of things in common this way. Like, I use goals because I know that's a word that people know. That's what people shoot for. But then, you see the title says live the goals. And so it's something different than just this destination. And what I found is getting people to focus on what they can control on a day-to-day basis gets them is what helps to keep them focused on getting there. And so, I know with a lot of people, just thinking about this big, gigantic goal, it gets me anxious, maybe depressed. I mean, it actually sometimes can be a demotivator. I'm moving the other direction because it just sounds so insurmountable. And so to get people to kind of bring that back and say, well, what can you do today for you only have 10 minutes. What can you do for that 10 minutes? And so that was pretty awesome about focusing on each hand. And I'm with you. If you can do 80%, if you're playing in a poker tournament and you focus on 80% of the hands intently 100%, you are ahead. That's work. I mean, that is real work there. You touched on something, Stephen, that my concept of completely changed once I started playing poker. And that's the concept of luck. And I know that's something that you talk and teach and write about. Tell me a little more about this concept called luck, because when I start, or maybe tell me where I'm wrong here. When I start playing poker and getting really into it, I came away with the belief that luck isn't this random thing. I started noticing that any time that I or somebody at the table felt unlucky, bad stuff started happening. And any time that I or someone at the table felt lucky, good stuff started happening. And so am I just making this up, or is there something to this?
Well, I don't think you're making it up, because a lot of people say a similar thing. And actually, I agree with you, because I think that, I hope you don't mind me mentioning my book. But
please.
Yeah, the title is Get Lucky Now, and it's got 7 secrets in it. And I mentioned Chris Moorman back in January 2014. By the way, for your audience, I'm going to make this general. It's not just going to be about poker, but it can be poker if you want. But I mean,
yes.
this luck is for everybody. I believe that luck is not random, and therefore I believe that everybody has the ability to attract more luck into their life.
Mm-hmm.
So in my book, I go through the 7 secrets. I don't think that I've invented any of them,
Mm-hmm.
because some of them have been around literally for thousands of years. But back in January 2014, I was giving a live presentation to a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I'm a self-development coach, a mind coach. I talked about health, wealth, and happiness, because Chinese think, if you have those 3 things, you have everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
You probably do most things. So I started off by saying, okay, who wants more health in their life, more wealth, more happiness, etc. And of course, nobody's going to argue with any of those things.
Yeah.
And I talk off the cuff, just like I am now. And sometimes, usually that works pretty well, but occasionally I just get an idea. What if I do something like that? And I often regret it. So anyway, so then in this presentation, I had this idea, and I finally said, now what about if you could all have more luck this year? And I knew something had happened. You could hear a pin drop. People kind of sat forward in their seats, and I got goosebumps. And I just knew there that I didn't, health, wealth, and happiness, that was nothing. They wanted to get lucky. So from that moment on, that's the subject I researched. I wrote about it. I talk about it. And I came to some conclusions. Now, 6 of those secrets, we could have any establishment scientist here, and I think they would accept that those 6 ones are logical and can be defended.
Right.
The fact is, some people use these automatically without realizing what they are, but a lot of people don't. And so once they start to, I can pretty much guarantee they're going to get at least a bit more luck, and hopefully a lot more, but a little bit of luck can go a long way.
Yeah.
Now, the 7th chapter is where I really go off on one, and I call this one magic. And I talk about some of the magical things that have happened to me in my life and my clients that are not so easy to describe and explain. Like my first client as a mind coach, which was 10 years ago, because I had a complete career switch. She was a lady golfer, a struggling lady golfer. My very first client, wasn't quite sure. If it'd been a disaster, I'd have probably quit and done something else with my life. But she, for any of the golfers out there, they will know everybody likes to score at least 1 hole in one in their life. A lot of them don't even get 1. This lady golfer, she got 3 in the next 3 months.
Oh my goodness.
Plus won some competitions and brought her handicap down. And the last time I checked, she'd actually got 6 holes in one. So, some people would say that's a bit greedy. I mean,
that's remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, but just because somebody has luck, it doesn't mean that there's somebody on the other side of the world who's really unlucky.
Right.
I think this stuff, it can be is an infinite supply of it if we're lucky.
Yeah.
The story I told you about Chris Moorman. I mean, the odds of him going straight on after we met for the first time and winning a major live tournament. I mean, that takes some explaining.
You pointed this out, and I want to just reiterate and make sure that our friends and family that are listening don't miss this point, right? I mean, okay. we happen to be talking about poker, but if you've been listening to me or watching the podcast, the interviews long enough, you know that I believe that you can pull life lessons out of just about any experience. Right. I actually laugh at it, but it's true. And I've talked about this in a presentation I gave before. I've played Candy Crush, complete time waster, time sink, but I've played Candy Crush and come away from that with life lessons before. And so, I just want you all, if you're not an avid poker player, I want you to listen to the lessons here, because we've already talked about mindset. We've talked about getting lucky. And what I want to go into next absolutely applies to everybody. And that's overcoming what people call failure or obstacles. And, now that you've worked with a few poker players at a high level, I think you understand that there are a bunch of obstacles that happen in a poker tournament. And there's something in the poker world called tilt. And tilt is essentially, when you're not controlling your emotions, something bad happens and you don't recover mentally. And from that point on, you just make bad decision after bad decision. Everybody around you sees it. They know it's going on. You might even know it's going on, and it spirals out of control. What is it that people can do, whether they're a poker player or something else, to avoid going on tilt? Because that's not just a concept that happens in poker. I mean, I think that a lot of us face obstacles or something we call a failure, and then we go on tilt. We're not able to recover from that failure or obstacle.
Yeah, and thanks also for your introductory comments there. Because by the way, I don't just work with poker players. I work with people from other sports.
Yes.
I work with business people. I work with actors. The great thing about being a mind coach, which makes it such a wonderful job for me, who gets easily bored. I think I might have ADHD, but I don't believe in labels like that. Is that the great thing is that the same stuff works for anything, just as you say, for your audience. So getting on a tilt, indeed, that's one of the 7 secrets. I call it adversity, because at some point in life, we're all going to face adversity. I mean, that's guaranteed. You would have to be supremely lucky not to be tested at some point in your life.
Right.
And the difference between a true champion and a average person is the true champions, it's almost as if they thrive on adversity. There's a fantastic example, I think, from your country. I don't know very much about American football, but there's this quarterback called Peyton Manning. I think he's just retired, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's retired, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got all kinds of records from what I know. But what most people may not realize is how much injury he had to cope with during his career, severe spinal injuries of his neck and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think he went for hundreds of games without missing a game. It's pretty aggressive sport, American football. So there's a person who learned to deal with adversity. And the poker players, when they're on a tilt, and Chris has said exactly this to me, it becomes a self-defeating spiral. The important thing, what I say, I know it's always easy for me to say, but I mean, I've had my challenges in life as well, is what is the message? When things are going against you, what is the message? Because it could be something from your unconscious mind just trying to grab your attention and say, there's something quite not right here. So that's the first thing to check. Now, the world of poker, that I would ask Chris, I say, are you still following your same strategies, your same rules? And if he can say, yeah, I would say, well, I think you just need to carry on, because you've been doing this game for well over 10 years, well over 10,000 hours and all the rest of it that it takes to make an expert.
Right.
Lady luck comes and goes. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. So stick with it, because what can be a response is you start changing stuff. And that's when things can go even worse and you get on more of a tilt.
Yeah.
They say, with a washing machine, if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. Just got to carry on doing the laundry.
Yeah, and I love that concept of asking him, well, what are you doing? Are you still doing the same things? Another thing, again, I learned so many life lessons out of poker. Another thing that I picked up from poker is that you want to measure your process, your system, your steps that you're taking, not necessarily the results, right? We all get enamored with the results, but how many times will a poker player do all the things wrong and get a fantastic result from that? But then you build in these habits and these systems that will not work over the long term. And sometimes you do everything right and you end up with a horrible result. But when you look back at the process, you understand you did do this right. When you apply that over and over and over again, over the long term, you win. And I think it's the same in life. Sometimes we face these obstacles and we change what we're doing because we learned the wrong lesson from that obstacle. And then that puts us on tilt and we spiral further down. Yeah, I agree, Dale. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. Well, Stephen, it is unfortunate, but we're actually at this point where we're having to start to wrap up. But we haven't started. I know. The time has flown. And
Yeah.
like I told you before this, I would have loved to have done several interviews because this, I mean, I could talk about this forever because it's so integrated with people's success, mindset, luck. I mean, everything you do when you coach people, whether they are, entrepreneur, businessman, sports, poker player, it doesn't matter. What you do in dealing with people's mindsets really applies to all of us. And so I want to ask you the hot seat scenario. We're going to do a slight little shift here. I'm going to make it a little more difficult for you than I've made it for other people.
Good.
There you go.
Challenges.
That's your bonus for being impressive in the interview. You get a harder question.
Sorry, I've got to go now, Dale. I just realized.
So I've got the same setup, and then I'll ask, and then we'll give you a little bit different rules. So you're going to be forced to swap lives with one of these two people. Mm-hmm. And I'll describe the people, but here's what's different. I'm going to ask you to give us one or two steps that you want these people to do, but I want them to be mind step type steps. Like what do they need to change in their mindset, or what do they need to think about, focus on, whatever it may be. Just one or two quick steps to just get them pointed in the right direction, not the whole formula that they would need, that I know you could coach them through. So here are the two people. We've got person A, and you got to choose one of the two. You got person A, who is working a regular work week, 40 to 50 hours, at least in the States, that's a regular work week, 40 to 50 hours, living check to check. So money's really tight, and then comes home and just has to unwind. I mean, feels drained from the day, spends 2 or 3 hours, watching TV, online, maybe surfing social media, just anything to get the mind off of the day to kind of unwind. Then we've got person B, who is somebody who is working long hours, is in a salaried position, making, we'll say $100,000 or $200,000, doing pretty well, but really feels like he is, wakes up in the morning, goes to work, comes home, goes to sleep, and then does it again. And so that's what he feels like his life is. Both of these people, person A and person B, neither one of them feel like they are living the life they want. They don't enjoy life. They know that something has to change, and they just don't know how to change. And so, Stephen, I'm asking you, which one of these two people are you going to swap lives with? And what's the first couple things you're going to do with your mindset to get pointed in the right direction?
I would be happy to swap with either of them, but for the sake of your example, I'll go with the second one because I can relate to that, having been that person just over 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So what would I say to this person? I'd have to start with an honest discussion. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, now look, this is your lifestyle. You're under stress. You're like a hamster on a wheel. Are you actually having very much fun? And then I'd say, we're not on this planet forever, And I can tell you something about stress. If you are under stress, and it seems to me as if you clearly are, sooner or later, this is going to impact on your physical and your mental health. And that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help your family. It's not going to help your friends. It's not going to help the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So you've got a choice. And the choice is probably right now. Are you going to carry on like this? Or while you're still young enough, are you going to get your life back? And I'd see what they'd say to that. Mm-hmm. And assuming that they hadn't thrown me out of their room by then or run away from me, I would then try and identify what is it exactly that you enjoy in life. Maybe you don't have this now, but maybe in the past, because everybody's got something that they enjoy.
Absolutely.
And if they say, oh, I can't think of anything, I'd say, okay, well, give me your bank statement, give me your credit card statement. Let's see where you spend all of your discretionary money. I'll tell you what you enjoy doing. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, you're being successful, not because you're the best at anything. You're being successful because you can really drive your conscious mind. You can use a lot of willpower. You're never going to say no. You're never going to say, I'm too tired. I'm overcommitted. In your company, they're going to give you these jobs because you'll get them done. Mm-hmm. So the problem is I've just mentioned how much stress that causes. And what you're missing out on, because apart from mental and physical health, stress destroys creativity. I would say in my world, we call people left brain and right brain. Left brain is the very conscious mind. Right brain is the unconscious mind. Mm-hmm. I'd say you're not giving yourself any room to tap into the vast power of your unconscious mind, which is way more powerful than your conscious mind. Wow. So once you learn how to do that, then you can do anything. And as I think we started this interview, I said to people, my clients, I say, you already have everything inside you that you need to do, whatever you need to do, you already have it inside you. You just don't know where to find it. So I'd say to this stressed businessman, I'm your coach for a few months, and let's find that other side to you. Wow. And then let's take it from there. Wow. Because once you tap into the unconscious mind, there's no point worrying about what the future's going to have. But the chances are that good things are going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. That is powerful. Gave you something harder, and it didn't matter. You passed with flying colors.
Oh, good.
And I know that he's not running out of room because you're sitting in front of the door like he did with Chris.
Yeah. Most people do stay around and at least hear me out.
Awesome. Thank you for playing along, Stephen. That was awesome. And before we wrap up here, I want to make sure that our friends and family have a way to reach out to you, to get in touch with you. What's your contact information? How can we get in touch with you? How can we find your books? I know that, those books, even the one you just described earlier, is one that we've got to check out.
Okay. Well, the books are on Amazon, as you might expect. And so they're pretty easy to find there if you have my name. It's called, the book about luck generally is called Get Lucky Now. And then for the poker players, there's a book called Poker Genius. And there's a golf book called Play Magic Golf. And there's a couple of others as well. My website and email are always the best ways to get in touch with me. I do actually reply to every single email that I get.
Wow.
And the easiest web address to remember is www.getluckynow.me.
Awesome. Friends and family, please reach out to him. This has been fantastic. I was expecting a great interview. I was excited about the interview, and it's lived up to it, which is really awesome to be able to say that it lived up to the hype that I had in my head. So, Stephen, thank you again for sharing your time and your valuable knowledge with our friends and family. Friends and family, you know that everything we discussed, links to his website, his books, will be in the show notes. So if you're driving and you can't get to it right now, just scroll down later on and links will be right there in case you don't remember it, because I want to make sure you're able to reach out to him. And until next time, friends and family, remember to set goals that matter and live the goals you set.
Thanks for checking out the show today, and make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We hope you take away something that helps fill your life with purpose and laughter. And make sure you head over to LiveTheGoals.com for more info on guests and resources. Remember to set and reach goals that lead you to a life of purpose and passion.